welcome to the Mysidian Legend podcast. My name is Alex Scott, and I am joined by David.
Hey, everybody.
So if it's your first time listening to us, each week we cover our locals experience, including our deck lists and how we can improve our play in the future. And that's all we're going to do this week, so let's get into it. But right before that, we're just going to mention our deal at Cards of Ivalice. So if you are shopping for singles at Cards of Ivalice, you can use the promo code PALUM10 for your purchase. And when you do that, it shows that you support the Mysidia Post, and it gets you a nice discount on your order. And they also have the new FF7 starter deck. They have the tins. They've got all sorts of stuff, including now Universus or Universal Fighting System TCG as well. So lots to get from Cards of Ivalice, all with the promo code PALUM10.
Eventually, you're going to get that card name right.
What card name?
It's another thing where you say it completely different every time. The UFS thing.
Well, no, that's because they're currently changing their name. So.
Oh, are they actually? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're changing from UFS to Universus. So I don't know, if we're going to mention both, then we'll catch, whichever people only know the one name. So, that's what we're doing.
All right. I submit. You got me.
Okay,
I thought it was just you pulling it, Alex.
Yeah. No, it's just me. So we're going to talk about locals, and it was a fun night. We had a long-term visitor from Australia. His name is Scott. He just moved here kind of on a work visa, and he's going to be here for a little while. So he was playing with us, and otherwise it was just the regular gang down at Magic Stronghold in Vancouver, Canada. So let's talk about our deck lists, and then we'll talk about the matches. Okay, so David, do you want to get into your deck list first? So the deck lists that we're going to talk about are actually the deck lists from last week's episode, except, David, you made some changes, so why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so after testing it out, I felt like it just didn't have quite enough oomph that Windwater has. Obviously, this is a subpar Windwater list, but when you're taking it to locals, you got to at least optimize it a little bit to make it a little competitive. So it was tough because it was a tight forward list. So I ended up dropping out the 3 Zidans, which really hurt me personally, as he's my favorite Final Fantasy character just in general. Dropped out one of the Pains, one of the Finas, and put in the Cloud of Darkness package that I was talking about at the end of last episode. So threw in 2 Laylas, 3 Vikings, 2 Cloud of Darkness, hoping to, give it a little more firepower.
Now, that Zidane isn't just your favorite character in the game. It's also just one of the best cards around. So cutting it from your deck is, pretty interesting move, bro.
Pretty interesting move, bro. Yeah, it was tough. I just kind of looked through up and down the list, and I was like, okay, what can I live without? What can I... Yeah. And that card just didn't really stand out to my main stratagems. So, and it had the least amount of synergy, so I cut it, and honestly, I probably paid dearly for it.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because it didn't have... It's just like a raw, powerful card, and that's why it's so good in anything with wind. But when you're trying to pull off multiple combos, certain cards just can't be cut, even though you could say Zidane's better than a bunch of cards in your deck. You just can't compromise when you are definitely going to pull off a combo. So that's where you kind of got stuck, and he was the cut to make.
Exactly. And when you're running a list of say 26 forwards like you were, it's probably a little easier to kind of play with the numbers, but I was only running 21 forwards, so that's a really tight list.
That's so tough because you're playing, and because you're playing 13 summons, but 21 forwards is difficult. It's not unusual. Like Earthwind, that used to be a pretty solid number, and they had the Luminous Puma and other recursion, but you just have Yuna coming back as recursion, so you're expecting your summons to do a lot of work. So any other thoughts on this deck, things that you were looking to do going into this week?
I just wanted to kind of fun with it. You know, I finally got my light unas, and I was yeah, I always wanted to play a light unit deck, so I finally got the opportunity to do that. I wanted to go in, kind of be competitive, um, and just have some fun, and I did two of those things.
Okay, I guess we're gonna get to the details in just a minute. Uh, just looking over your deck quickly, you've ended up keeping that no, and just a quick recap on that. Do you think that having the no was worth it?
Actually, yeah, I think the no put in a lot of work for me because it kept reactivating the Astrologians, the Wakas. Even if it just activates a white mage, it's something. Like it's one more thing that
Yes.
they got to think about because if they're going to do any recursion, which is super big right now, yeah, they got to think twice about that.
Yeah, that's you know what, Nonos can might be maybe it's going to be a good card, particularly in Opus 11 as we have a bunch of backup dull freezing coming in. So maybe that's a card that people are going to take another look at.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, let's get on to the master list that is my Icewind Final Fantasy 14 list. Unchanged from last podcast episode. Why would you change Perfection?
Oh my goodness, God. This episode
But
can be called Alex's Ego.
yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So I didn't need to change the list because it was working fine, and I just wanted to get competitive games in with it. So just to give you guys a quick recap, or if you didn't listen to the last episode, this is an Icewind list that has a lot of Final Fantasy 14 cards in it. So you have your Canny Senna package and with the Albarran Senna and Rhea Senna backups. So basically, you've got a searcher for backup and forward. And once you have the full combo assembled, when Canny Senna comes into the field, she activates all your backups and then gets 2k power and can't be targeted by abilities. So it's kind of like a Bartz that you can play in multiple elements, and then just a nice little protection against abilities, which is very relevant right now. So the other cool thing about this deck is we're running Varus from Final Fantasy 14, and if you pay for him with 3 different colors, then you can search for any card when he enters. He's a 3 CP backup, and he also has a recursion effect for Final Fantasy 14 forwards, which is perfect with Canny Senna. So my third color is Earth, and I have 3 Class 8th Moogles and 3 Legend Cecils to make up that Earth, and that's about it. The rest of it is Icewind, and it's pretty standard, I'd say, besides the Canny Senna. There's a Nidhogg. You've got your Renoa shenanigans. It's a pretty standard deck aside from the Canny Senna edition.
Yeah, but what did you when you built this? Was there a deck that you had seen before that you were kind of inspired you to build this, or was this just a
No,
complete? This is just you.
this is me, but at the same time, like I've obviously seen Icewind decks before, and I'm also just playing a bunch of staples. Like these are cards that I would put into most decks that I'm building. So for example, when I'm building a deck, I might start with backups or forwards depending on what I'm doing. So for this deck, I started with the Canny Senna package, and then I'm like, okay, I want to play the Varus, so I need the class 8th. And at that point, I'm just filling out a few more backup slots on wind and ice. So you have stuff like your backup, your monster searching, your scholar for bringing back 3 CPs, Jill Nabat, like pretty simple stuff. Summons again, like Zalira, Glacia, Diabolos, those are all just filling out lists anyway. Scale Toad, Death Gaze 9, like these are all cards that you're going to put in. And then on the forward side, I decided I wanted to go for Sephiroth, which means I'm putting the 3 CP one in. It means you're putting Renoa in. It means that, like, with Wind, you're always going to have your Shtola Zidane. Like, there's all pretty kind of like staples that I would put into a lot of decks. And then kind of like what you were talking about, where you start to say, well, what's the deck's purpose? And you start to cut some of your staples for the things that make the synergy happen. And in this case, I was able to keep just a boatload of good cards in. So
No, fair enough. So basically, you just started with the East Senna package, and then just kind of worked your way down and just kind of trickled down, and kind of built
yeah,
itself.
And there was little things like Nidhogg ended up going in because it's a Final Fantasy 14 forward, has synergy with Renoa, can be brought back by Varus. Y'shtola can be brought back by Varus, which is pretty unreal. Like lots of little interactions like that. And I actually went for a double Squall 3-drop Legend because I've only ever played one of him in a deck, so I wanted to know what playing 2 of would be like if I'd get to use it more often, and I actually do enjoy it, although it's just tough to fit into Ice, Earth, or Ice, so managed to find space for it here.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
And let's move on to the games?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about some other matches. Okay, so round 1, I was playing against our dear friend Yuta, and he was playing a light Yuna deck as well. And I'm trying to remember what was the tricky thing about his light Yuna deck. Do you remember?
Well, the tricky thing about his light Yuna deck is that it was very simple. It was basically the kind of Rydia deck that Julian had posted.
No, so this is a deck that we've actually already talked about. It's the Rydia Light Yuna. And you play Citra a bunch, and then you bring Light Yuna back into your hand so that you can use Citra's discard a light card ability. So yes. I was up against that, and I had just a monster start in my opening hand. I had Class 8th Moogle Albarran Senna, and I can't remember what I had Varus. So I played the Albarran Senna into Canny Senna. I was able to play the Class 8th Moogle. And then the next turn, I played Araya Senna, so I'm at 3. And then, I had played an ice backup. I basically was able to tap 3 for Varus, and then the next turn, I played Canny Senna to go to 5, Araya Senna, and then I did the 5 CP, play Raya Senna, Canna Senna. This is really tripping me out here. Activate all your backups, play another forward, and I just got out to a crazy start. I had 3 forwards. I had Y'shtola out to protect them. It was honestly just like the best start I could have possibly asked for. He was having trouble playing cards, and then I attacked and hit a Porum, so he brought a 7 CP Phoenix back to his hand. He cast it. He killed one of my forwards. I attacked again. He hit a 7 CP Odin. He killed another one of my forwards. And at that point, I fell behind, and I literally never did another point of damage to him because I had lost so much momentum, and I had lost so many resources off those 2 EX bursts that I just couldn't come back.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I learned the first time I ever played Yuta was he stacks those EX bursts. So every time you swing, you're holding your breath that he doesn't hit it.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough. Like I feel like if those hit at different times, then I'd be fine. But to get them back to back and get them so early too, because I had invested in a decent board with protection, but Y'shtola can't protect against EX bursts, so it just kind of like it really, really shut me down, and that's just kind of a bummer because I could have hit those EX bursts anywhere, and it was just funny because he had a bad opening too, so it just really it was one of the more decisive EX burst effects that I've seen, because oftentimes EX bursts aren't that relevant to the way the game's going. Like they don't flip a game on its head, but this was a total 180.
Yeah, no, fair enough. If you're gonna, as I said last week or the week before, if you're gonna play the RNG game, play it to your favor, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. Okay, so what about your first match?
So my first match was against a Une deck. I lost 7-5. I was up 5-2. I was in the driver's seat for pretty much the entire game up to that point. Everything was firing on full cylinders. I'm feeling great. And then I went a little too hard, and I just started dumping cards out of my hand just to kind of flex on him. So I ended up going Layla to Viking into a Cloud of Darkness. Had 6 forwards on, and then that was a really bad idea because he just dropped Athena and then was able to flicker it with Une and just completely cleared my board. And there was no way for me to recover from that. The deck actually performed really well. My deck did. Just the problem was the player, me. I'm the one who lost this game, not the cards.
Totally. I mean, so what would you have changed? You overextended a little bit. So do you remember like which cards you played last that you could have held on to?
Yeah, I played Layla Vikings and Cloud of Darkness for almost no value. Like I don't even think I used Cloud of Darkness to take out one of their forwards. Like, I think I was just going hard to get that last 2 points of damage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Absolutely not. Like I'll take the hit on that one 100%. I deserved to lose. It was because of me. It wasn't because of the deck.
Yeah, and you already had forwards out before that.
Yeah, I had.
Yeah.
I think I had a Yuta. I had a Yuna, a Tidus, and I can't remember Riku. I think something like that. Yeah, it was bad.
One thing I like to think about when I'm on board and I'm thinking of playing more forwards, especially when you start to play more than 2 or 3, I start to think about, one, do I have to discard at the end of the turn? And if I don't, then if nothing changes, am I going to win the game on like this way? And if the answer is yes, then you don't need to play anything because it means your opponent has to react.
Yeah, that was exactly the issue. I tried to go hard. I really didn't need to play them, and this is one of those things where it's just a lesson learned. This is what I get for being way too greedy, kind of a little arrogant about it, and yeah.
Yeah, because like you hope that he probably would bop his Fina on that
first board. He would have had to.
I
think he only had the resources to play the Fina and then play that summon. So
yeah,
he was going to make that play.
You would have opened up the board right after that, and then possibly brought a Yuna back to your hand and just kind of went for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, that's part of this podcast is learning from our mistakes. So anything else about that match in particular?
No, I was feeling kind of salty about it, but just because I was the one who made such a big blunder, but I wasn't frustrated in the actual cards themselves, so I felt okay about the deck moving forward, so I was able to get back in the right headspace.
Awesome. Okay, so then we played in the second round, of course.
Of course we did.
We always do.
Our usual second round, yeah.
Before the pairings came out, I looked over at him. I said, "We're playing." He said, "No, we're not." And then, sure enough, we were. So yeah, that's how it goes.
Absolutely.
So we matched up. You bricked. It's like it's deja vu. We record this podcast almost every week, and whenever we play, it seems like you brick. It's really insane.
Oh, it's got to be a curse because we had a friend named Philip who moved to Narnia, and it was funny because I could never beat him, and I would always brick against him. And then everybody else I could beat. And now it's kind of flipped now that Philip's gone. It's that you're the one who I'm cursed on, and I can't beat anymore, and I can beat everybody else, but no, just you. I'm drawing all forwards or all summons, and it sucks.
You know, it's funny. I could never beat Phil either, but I never bricked.
Huh. Lucky you.
Yeah, well, he's just a good player. So,
don't give him the credit.
I feel like this one kind of became a bit of a match. Like you came into the game later on, and we ended up going longer than you might have thought given the start, but because you bricked, like I always had an advantage, and in the end I won. But I feel like there was a point of the game where I thought to myself, well, he's actually come into it quite well, and we ended up having a good game. Would you say that's the case?
For sure. Like I wrote some notes. I wrote both of us started kind of slow. And even when I was able to get going with some combos, which is probably the time you're thinking, you had answers to debilitate me with dulls and freezes and making me discard. So if I did get cards back from Layla Vikings or I don't know, like a Unititus thing where I draw two, the cards were always just going to the break zone, and everything was just getting dull frozen, and I couldn't pull off good combos. You just had answers.
Yeah, no, I remember there was actually a point where you had no choice but to play out your hand for a Cloud of Darkness, but then I had a Sephiroth out, so that means when I swung the next turn, it just dull froze the Cloud of Darkness.
Exactly. And if I could have maybe had that Cloud of Darkness go off a little bit, maybe things could have been different, but
But the issue, and I had the Scale Toad, so it's like, okay, well, like, I play it and it gets dull frozen. I don't play it, I have to discard a card. Like, you were totally hooped.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, and you know what? So what's kind of interesting in that game is that I had a moment where I was kind of the aggressor, and I drew into my Albarran Senna, and I started thinking I need to set up the Seed Seer package, and then I thought better and said, well, I can just try to win it this way, and I ended up not using the Seed Seer package that game at all, and just kind of went after you with everything else in the deck, and it worked out pretty well, which makes sense because Wind Ice is a good deck. So, I thought that was a good decision. I think I would have really slowed stuff down if I had tried to set up my Seed Seers.
I agree. You were in the driver's seat. There was no reason for you to take a back seat like that. If you could just gone full speed ahead and get the win, which you did. So
Yeah.
I think that was a good decision.
Thanks. Round 3. I was playing against Scott, our Australian friend who was on Fire Earth. I think it was the only deck he brought, or one of the only decks he brought to Canada, and it was awesome because it had so many cool interactions. Like, it's not necessarily a meta deck, but it's very powerful. So it has a bunch of fight effects, all your fight summons like Hecaton and Yojimbo, etc., Rabon, all those types of things. And then it was running Ignacio and Vermilion Bird Zuyu, which is a 5 CP 9k forward that when he kills something, you can pay 1 fire to reactivate him and he can attack again. So you never want to block him, but you can also attack with him and then have him fight with something. With a Hecaton, he reactivates and then you attack with him again. So there's some really very cool interactions in that deck. And he got after me pretty quickly with a lot of haste. And I had to kind of scramble to stabilize. I hit him with some Sephiroths. I hit him with a Death Gaze with the Diabolos. There was one point where he did a big haste combo in a Zuyu, and I hit it with a Zalira, and then he played out a Ignacio, and I dropped a Nidhogg on that, and then I even played my Yasmat. I basically I removed his stuff until I eventually could win the game, but it was just like this big defensive push, and once again I forewent the Seed Seer package to focus on my defense, and it paid off in the end because I ended up winning. So my record finished at 2-1.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you built the whole deck around the Seed Seer package, and 2 wins were the Seed Seer package wasn't even a factor.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't read too much into it because it's just the way that you play the deck. Like, if those second and third games I started with Albarran Senna in my hand, then I would have played Seed Seer those games, but I didn't start with it in my hand. So you're kind of building late, if at all. So I think that worked out, and I think it's fine to not. It's just one forward that you're not really setting up. Although when you do, it is certainly a very, very nice forward that's a free 9k, can't be targeted by abilities. So
yeah, nothing to shake a stick at for sure.
Mm-hmm. On another note, Cecil was good again. I definitely like having the Cecil in there. I haven't EX bursted it yet, but I've cast it a few times, so it's good.
Yeah, good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to cast it, have a big body on the board, big body on the board, and and kill something. So I mean,
Yeah,
and it's your favorite card, kind of a homer pick.
exactly. It's got to be in there. Okay, how about your third round?
So my third round was against the summoner deck that you played in your first round, and it's really funny because you were like, "Oh, the EX burst kind of screwed you." Well, they absolutely screwed me. um, it was super back and forth. I kind of tried to push the tempo hard, knowing that he would always have removal in his hand, always had summons in his hand. So I decided that maybe playing conservative and keeping everything in my hand wasn't the way to go because he's just going to draw more and more, right? So I kept trying to push the tempo a little bit. I got 3 damage on him, and there were EXs on every single damage. It was just
Wow.
bananas. Yeah. And then, so of course, my deck draws a lot, not only being wind water, but because I put in as much draw as I possibly can. If I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose because of me. And so the last turn, I had 3 cards left in my deck. Draw 2, play Yuna, which Yuna was really good. Like, she came back into my hand so many times. So that was in full swing. Played a Yuna, played a Tidus, I had probably 4 forwards out at this point, thinking, okay, like I have to win it in the next turn. And then he killed my Yuna, draw 2 cards, game over. So I decked out.
Oh man, that's frustrating. And
It's frustrating.
you
Like
gotta think,
the damage was 3-0, and I decked
yeah,
out.
yeah, he just grinded that one out. And you think that, I guess you draw so many cards. It's not like he
Yeah,
doesn't search and draw a bunch himself and take cards off the top with Iridia. So you just kind of outdrew him.
I'm sure it was tight, but yeah, when it comes to things like, I mean, every second card I have is either drawing or searching something. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that was that. Our night was over, and we're gonna take a look at what we might change about these decks, or maybe even just move on to playing or building next.
yeah, so I'm moving on. Honestly, it was fun moving on. My thing right now is revisiting decks that I enjoyed playing a long time ago and trying to get those stratagems, and see kind of modernize them. So like a fire water tempo deck, which isn't completely based around FF9, just maybe a little FF9 package, and a different kind of wind water, which is a bit more meta, but has some weird little intricacies in it.
Nice. I'm not gonna unpack this deck. I honestly still don't even feel like I need to change anything about it. So I'm really just looking at Opus 11 at this point because I'm going away to Europe for just over a week, and by the time I get back, we'll almost be ready for Opus 11. So if you've read my recent Ursula article, I've been brewing bunks quite a bit, but I'm also looking at Always, Mono Earth, and a few other archetypes right now. So we'll see where that goes. Since I probably won't be playing at all until I get back. So just going to leave things the way they are.
No, fair enough. Opus 11's right around the corner, so it'll be interesting to do all that stuff when you get back.
Now, did you see the new Chilinka?
I did see the new Chilinka.
So for those of you that haven't, it's a 3 CP backup. Obviously, category FFCC, so that's a big deal. And when Chilinka enters the field, she gives a forward brave, and this forward can attack twice per turn or 2 times each turn for that turn. And then
For that turn.
It has 2 wind and doll Chilinka, and you can return her to your hand so that you can play her again. So, David, can you imagine playing that on 2 CP Zidane?
Yeah, I actually can. And that's kind of one thing I thought of, like, oh, that would be nice for that. But I don't know. I have never played Waters, the 2 CP Zidane in a wind water deck, so.
I mean, they certainly know how to draw cards.
If I'm gonna deck myself out, I'm gonna deck myself out.
Well, just to get Zidane's effect online.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
It could be like
I'll give her a try.
Water Wind.
Yeah.
With Layla Viking, and you have 5 CP Lena, bringing back your Zidanes, and possibly like a Garnet or a Porum or something, and then you're off to the races because you got Schlinka and Norstalin, and maybe you got 3 Class 8th Mughals, so that you can run triple Gabranth.
Jesus, what would I search with that?
The Class 8th Mughal. Oh, though, sorry, the not Cabranth, Bosch. His brother.
Yeah, there we go. Wow, then I could just run all my Homer cards in one deck.
Yeah, one. It's and the deck name would be Who Wants to Draw a Lot of Cards.
Oh, what a creative name.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like a carnival game, and you'd announce that before each match. You'd say that to your opponent.
Who wants to draw a lot of cards?
And even though you'd be drawing more than an average player, you'd still be bricking against me. That's the best part.
I would be drawing more than the average 2 players in a game.
Yeah.
I would be drawing 4 cards a turn. 6 cards a turn.
All right, so
which is funny. Before we log off, that actually kind of would be funny. And FFTCG Kageyama, get at me. In my Magic the Gathering deck is a self-mill, which does pretty much that. I just keep drawing, and throwing stuff into graveyard break zone. So that kind of relates to that. I just need to have a card that lets me do that and win.
There you go. Yeah, you can relate it to one of your favorite decks, and it instantly holds some interest for you.
Yep.
Okay, so as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, I'm heading off to Europe to chaperone a school trip, and I'm going to be gone for about 12 days. And because of that, we will not have a podcast next week. And I can't remember exactly when I get back, but it might actually affect the next week. But we'll see. Maybe we can have a special one talking about David going to pre-release and some spoilers, etc. But we'll see if there's even a pre-release in Canada, because I guess, honestly, more often than not, we don't get them on time, although once in a while we do.
In my entire time playing this game, we've gotten it on time once, I think.
I think that makes 2 total then, because I can't really think of... I feel like maybe Opus 3 was on time?
Yep, that was long before my time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. Well, hopefully it happens this time. Even though I won't be here for it, I want you guys to be happy without me.
Wow, that's so mature of you.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? Let's cap it off there. And just to summarize, I am very mature. I built great decks. And yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
And he's a passionate lover. His wife will attest to that.
Yeah, 50-50 chance that doesn't even make it into the final podcast.
I think it's 0%.
Okay, so thank you everybody for tuning in this week for the Mysidian Legend podcast. Don't forget to use that promo code PorumPalum10 at cardsofulysses.com to get a discount on your order. That's PorumPalum10. And you can also check out my articles at themysidiapost.com and subscribe to me on YouTube. I've actually been writing recently. I think I've written 1 to 2 articles a week for the last 3 or 4 weeks, so there's lots of stuff on there right now, so you can go check that out. And then finally, we're going to give a big thank you to FF Decks, because they just keep getting these spoilers up so quickly, and it's very, very helpful for brewing my Ursula deck when the spoilers are up and updated.
Yep, FF Decks. You're the best website ever.
FF Decks. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Say goodbye, David.
Sayonara, bye now.